One of the things that came up over conversations, right, that I think we can all relate to is like one of the fears, I made the wrong decision. Nobody's going to like it. People are going to leave or they're going to argue with me. So we spend some time, right, noticing, well, when you anticipate that, if that's a story, how are you showing up for the conversation?
Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, an Arcadia production. This is the show all about how to grow in business, lead with purpose, and live with intention. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
Hello, friends.
Hi. Welcome. Welcome, podcasters.
A very special episode because...
For many reasons.
Many reasons.
They're all special.
One of the main reasons this is special is we are in person.
In the studio.
A studio for the first time ever.
We are in a Kiln co-working space.
Yes.
Big co-working franchise out here in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of you are working out of one.
Big fans. They are supporting a lot of things that we're doing these days. And they have a podcast studio. So we're taking advantage and recording in person. Yeah. Not only with each other, but our guests today.
Yeah,
also.
That was cool. That was a big one too.
You know what else I just learned?
Just now? In this moment?
Well, earlier today.
No.
I was listening to a new podcast that I'm really a fan of. Not All Business. Check it out.
Okay.
And they were saying that they've recorded 21 episodes, which means they're in the top 1% of podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Most podcasts don't make it past episode 3.
What are we at? I don't even know.
I mean, we are probably right at 70 right now. So
I think we're
like
in the 80s.
Top 0.001%.
Wow.
Podcasters, but definitely not listeners.
I'm going to take a win where we got one. We are a top 1% podcast.
No, we're more than that.
Okay. So anyways, now that we're in the top 1% and finally recording in the studio, today we had a really awesome guest.
Yeah. A local Bozemanite, Kelly Ramirez.
Miss Kelly Ramirez.
And we find out how we got connected, which is a really cool story.
It is a cool story. Yeah, I won't, no spoiler alerts, but stay active on the LinkedIns, people, because it does pay dividends.
Or the Spotifys or YouTubes.
Okay, so Kelly is an executive coach.
Yes.
She's...
what is the type of her coaching? I've already forgot.
Ontological.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to like some sort of doctor.
She'll explain what this means, but ontological means way of being.
Yes.
So your way of being in the world, with your teams, with your company.
With yourself.
With yourself. This one felt very therapeutic to me, as most of these episodes have recently.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation. I asked a lot of questions that I was trying to get answers to, so that was hopeful.
Yeah, so did I.
Can I use it like that?
No, I don't think that's correct. Okay, go listen. Check out Kelly. Let us know what you think. Thank you for being a friend. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Hello, friends.
It's a big day in the Friends with Benefits podcast.
This is our first ever in-person recording.
Not only in person, but we're in a studio. If you're watching this, from home on your YouTubes, we're in a podcast studio here in Bozeman, Montana.
Yes. Yeah. Not only are we in person with our beautiful guests today, but this is the first time Jason and I have ever been in the same room to record a podcast.
This is true.
Thank you for inviting me to be your guinea pig / first.
I mean, I think we owe you all the thanks.
It only took us 23 minutes to figure out how to get this setup rocking and rolling. So I consider that a win.
Okay. So today's guest is super exciting because, well, I think we should start with this happened via an online connection.
Mm-hmm.
We should do a shout out to the Melissa Moody.
Melissa Moody. The great one. Yeah.
So Melissa introduced us via LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were lucky enough to meet Miss Kelly Ramirez in person, who lives here in Bozeman and is doing phenomenal work with leaders, doing coaching, ontological coaching at that. Hang tight if you don't know what that means. But yeah, Kelly lives in Bozeman, has 2 daughters, is a phenomenal athlete and hobbyist herself. So we're really excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I recently just learned of how much of a freak athlete you are through your LinkedIn post. I had no idea that you were such a endurance athlete.
Yeah, it's been really fun. When we say endurance athlete, like what we're talking about is running, right? Long distance running. And so last year, I committed to picking up or putting down on my calendar and then recruiting adventure buddies for a series of epics, which
Amazing.
involved training for and then carrying out these adventures. No races. I didn't enter any formal
Okay.
races, but a couple friends of mine and I sat down and looked at some maps and thought about our bucket list, big like epics, and
Yeah.
then put them down on the calendar and started to train for them and then kind of tick them off one by one.
Can you define an epic?
Yeah.
Okay, so an epic, as I define it, is an effort, like some specific event that requires mental, physical, and logistical organization. And the reason that I defined it that way is I found, by picking, I used to say like, oh, I'd like to go on a trip, or I don't spend enough time with this friend or that friend. And what I found is if I like actually gave it criteria, and this is a little nerdy, but the way that I found I stuck to it was I actually made it my primary business goal last year. I mean, it was for my well-being, but I did not allow it to come last. And in fact, I found by prioritizing those activities and all the things I did around them, it allowed me to really see some phenomenal results in my business.
Is it like the discipline that you saw that made a difference, or was it like just the sheer like increase of confidence? Like what was it?
You know what it was, and I think you both will probably relate to this, as I actually like in my schedule had time to just be like the training time I took really seriously.
And that's not
right?
something that you can rush.
You can't rush it.
Yeah.
And there were I had injuries throughout the week before I did my longest run, which was 38 miles across Zion National Park
Oh, wow.
with my friend
Beautiful.
Michelle. I actually had something going on with one of my tendons in my feet, and I ended up in a boot for 10 days before we were supposed to leave. And so I'm like,
Been there, done that.
it's not going to happen, right? And my daughters, you mentioned I 12-year-old daughter, so they each gave me their own version of the pep talk, right? Scarlett, who's like so sensitive, comes to me and she's like, Mommy, I just want you to know this might not happen, and that will be okay.
The realist.
And then I'm putting Lola to bed one night, we're chatting, and she's like, Mommy, I want you to know that you are going to be able to do this.
I love it.
You have trained.
The optimist.
You are prepared, right? You
There's
don't
one
have
in
to
every
quit.
family.
I love that.
So honestly, I mean, I think it was the events, but like the ability to go to the places, right? I was in Zion. I did a really big one in Yellowstone. That was super fun.
That's awesome. I think that's interesting how you found that incorporated into your business, because we talk to a lot of our Arcadia members about doing hard things.
Yeah.
And really challenging yourself and like pushing yourself beyond your means. And like, love to hear that you saw that influence and impact your business, especially like as a coach who kind of helps people do the same thing.
Even
Yeah.
further, though, I think what I took from that is Arcadia means harmony. And that means not neglecting parts of your life that may be easy to put on the back bench or whatever. And by you prioritizing this as a part of your business, you did, it sounds like, kind of find that harmony throughout all areas of your life.
Yeah. And you know this too, right? Not always in the most graceful or beautiful ways. There were
course
like
not.
some really hard or abandoned runs or other things that were happening over that year. But yeah, it felt like one of the ways that I have talked about it is like it found like a way to find my own center of gravity. I'm sure about the coaching practice that I have, but I'm coming up on the anniversary of the second year of opening that coaching practice. So it was still quite new. And I think, sitting in my office or like trying to figure things out to get it right in a more traditional, like I'm going to sit down and get the work done,
Yeah.
wasn't helping me. I go on LinkedIn and start comparing myself to where I saw other people were, or I'd think like, oh, okay, I need to do this or I need to do that. And in fact, the more space I gave myself, and for me, that space was physical as well as mental. I just started, like Jason, you said, the confidence piece. It built my own confidence. And then I found when I was able to clear some of that junk from my mind, I could be so much more present with my clients when we sat down for their work.
We do have listeners to this podcast, but even if we didn't, I feel like every episode we have, I'm like, well, I needed to hear that today.
Oh, I
So-
love that. Well, as I was getting ready to come in, And because we're all in Bozeman, it was just across town. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, since we met in person, we've had some opportunities to go on walks together.
Mhm.
And I'll leave those walks. Maybe you think this every day because you get to live with Sam. I'll be like, dang it, I wish I'd recorded that. Or I wish I'd taken notes. And now it is recorded.
I know.
So
I was like,
I'm
we just
excited
can
to
have a
have it.
conversation. It's just next time we're just going to bring little mics on our walks. So,
I love it.
okay. The other thing I loved about what you said about your epics, it feels like it's on a very parallel path to kind of what you lead your leaders through. We were talking about this. There's so many realms of coaching
Yes.
these days, and that can
Yes.
mean a million things to a
Yes.
million people. You specifically practice ontological coaching.
Yeah.
So let's just start there. Can you
Yeah.
define that for somebody who's never heard that term before?
So ontological in any form that you put it in effectively is our way of being.
Okay.
And from a coaching perspective, in the training that I did, so I did my coach training in ontological coaching. The tenets of that approach are really that as human beings, there are three main components that influence how we are, how we show up in the world, our way of being. It is body, physical, right? Our somatic experience, how we hold our body. And I'm sure we'll get to talking about that too as leaders. Sideline a little bit, but one of the things that comes up a lot when I'm working with people who are moving into a leadership role is they'll mention like leadership presence. Part of that is somatic, right? So it's recognizing what's going on in my body. What do I understand about that? There's also an emotional component. What emotions am I feeling? And for a long time in my professional career, being in tech and really having an analytical focus, and honestly, being a woman coming up in male-dominated
Mhm.
areas, what I understood about my emotions is what I should do is shut them down. Emotions didn't have a place in work.
Yeah.
What I've come to learn and what I really love about this specific approach to coaching and also just to living our lives is recognizing that emotions are messages. We have the opportunity, and I think too as leaders, the responsibility to be aware of them
Mhm.
and have a way to metabolize them. Understand what is this emotion telling me before we allow it to really run the show, take over. So there's an emotional component to that. And then there's a language component. And language is, right, the language we use, also the beliefs or the narratives, that like running loop, especially in times of stress or crisis or frustration, that feel
Current
very
day.
familiar.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably all had some of those.
Yeah.
Honestly, 15 minutes ago, as we were trying to set up this whole new podcast thing, right? Of like, oh shit, I'm not going to get it right. So like being really aware of the language that is present that you're using. And the ontological frame in the world is like all of those things make up how you show up, how
Mhm.
you arrive, and also the results that you get.
Mm.
So if you're getting results that you don't like, or you have a sensation of feeling stuck, or I'll often hear people say like, I'm doing all the right things, but I'm still not getting the outcome I want.
Mhm.
It actually has very little to do with what you're doing.
Hmm.
And it has a lot more to do with how you're being.
You're essentially walking people through like how to reframe their state of being.
That's a great way to say it. And then not only reframe, the fascinating part about this work that I really love is we're then reframing. So there's a new perspective, right? There's new language that's available or a new belief that you can bring into a situation. But we're also then in active practice of building new neural pathways in your brain.
Mhm.
So you're not just an automatic reactive,
Mhm.
right? Go to what's always worked or what you always thought is true
Yeah.
about a situation.
I think it's important to take a step back really quickly and talk about how you got to this place, because a lot of people just fall into coaching, but you actually were a participant, recipient of coaching first.
I was.
Do you mind sharing that quick story?
I would be
And-
happy to. So I actually became aware of coaching by having a coach. And there's a story that I'd love to share. So I had Prismatic. It was an e-commerce growth firm, and we grew really quickly. Luckily, things were going really well. And I had actually Natalie Flowers, since we're in Bozeman.
Erica Flowers has been on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes.
It was
Okay, great.
3 or
So
4
all
guests ago.
great people only
Yeah.
have one degree of separation. So Natalie, in that business, was my right-hand woman in many ways. As she was advancing within our small firm, one of the requests that she made to me was to have access to more leadership development. And so what we ended up deciding to do was hire an executive coach who could work with both of us and allow us, right, enable us to be more effective, more efficient, for the business to run more smoothly. Now, if I like take us back 5 years, when I started the work, I thought, oh, awesome, executive coach. She's going to help me figure out how to get people to do what I want faster. This
Right.
will be perfect.
How wrong were you?
Oh, so wrong. That's not what, right? So when we began to work with her, what we actually had the opportunity to do was see more clearly the habits and patterns that had allowed both of us, right? And I'll speak for me now, had allowed me to be successful. Those same habits, patterns, beliefs, the way of being, right? How I was in my work, in my life. There was a limit to that. It actually like had begun to cap what was possible for me. And so that approach really helped me, rather than great people are doing exactly what I want, how I want them to do it. I was able to peel like the curtain back for myself and understand, wow, okay, I have this, like one example, I have a limited belief, right, that runs through my head and has me justify or understand my role in the world. So my limited belief that I was able to identify was I have to be responsible. And then as another example, another part we defined is a coping competency. So that's like what you do when you're in this reactive state. For me, a little long, single-mindedly and righteously taking over to get the outcome I want ASAP.
Kelly told me this when we first met, and I was like, same.
I was going to say, have you guys met each other?
But hey, so here's the thing, right? Like, if you recognize things in that, there's like that given, right, things that happened early in our life as human beings when we're evolving and our brain is making sense of the world. Being that way, like doing those things, I know for me allowed me to be successful. And yet, once I got to the place of business owner, right, not like scrapping out a startup and trying to get clients, but actually like, how do I create a movement? How do I take this from just doing, right? Like, how do I move from executing to actually having impact beyond myself? Because my coping competency, and for us, we all have one, it makes me feel really good when I can do it. Whether it's at work and, or it's at home and it's around doing dishes or loading the dishwasher a certain way, when I'm like, it's got to be this way. And I now, right through that coaching that started 5 years ago, and now I think the question started with, how are you working with others in this? It's like, just the awareness that that's at play takes power away from running the show.
I was kind of thinking about that. It's like, if I'm listening at home, like, okay, well, how do I identify that in myself? So you talked about identifying habits, patterns, beliefs, and those limited beliefs. Like,
yeah,
tactically, what did you do to identify those in yourself? And like, how do you help your clients find that now?
Yeah. So the way that I was able to do it was by working with a coach one-on-one at the detail level. But I think that's not required. If somebody is listening to this and thinking like, oh, there's got to be, what might this be for me? I would say one way to identify that would be, think about the last upset or last conflict that really had your feathers ruffled, right? Something that you might have like ruminated on at night. And as you think about that, notice, what is my assumption? Like, what are the stories that I'm telling about that? And if I make a little bit of room, is that actually true? That's like one exercise just to start, really, because the first step in all of this that we'll talk about today is like making room for a little more awareness instead of jumping right to, well, this is how it is.
I was curious. You talk a lot about like the way of being.
Yeah.
Right. How is that different or same from like mindset, habits, or strategy?
Oh, I love that question. So can we talk about the strategy piece? Because I think
Sure.
that's a key differentiator in terms of the type of work that I'm aligned with and the wide variety of coaching support or consulting support that you could seek out. I'll use an example from a client that I worked with who had, has built a multi-million-dollar business, has had the benefit of working with a number of different coaches along the way for different things. And we were actually doing the wrap up, like the debrief on a 6-month intensive that we did together, which is the main way that I engage with my clients. And I was asking for her feedback. And she said, I have to tell you, when we first started working together, I was feeling really frustrated because I thought, from having experience working with other business coaches, that I would come in and there would be like solutions that we would work on, or my background is in marketing. So she said, like, there were times when I had a marketing problem and I thought that you would help me solve it. You know a lot. What you never told me the answer. It was so different. And she said, at first that was really frustrating to me. And so then I said, well, what about now? And she said, actually, like, this 6 months has been some of the most transformational work I've done for my business and for myself, because this type of coaching really is much more about not getting advice or getting the answer from an expert, but in coaching, like you and I, Jason, if we were to sit down for a session, we are equal partners in the conversation.
Yeah.
And in fact, I often say, right, my role is the listener, your role is the thinker. And my job is to hold the flashlight and you've got the map. So my value, like what I am able to offer to you, really the whole goal of us working together, is being able to shine that light on things or ask questions in a way that has you pause and invite a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so coming back to the client in that 6-month wrap up, she said, I thought I wanted the answers, but what really benefited me was by having you ask me questions that had me find my own answers.
Needed the direction. They needed a guide.
Some of the things that she came up with weren't on my radar at all.
Yeah.
But that's not my role. My role is really bringing more clarity. And then also, I think, like, creating a space for people to not know. I'm going to make a leap and say, for like those of us that might be right historically, like type A,
Yes.
know how to plan, know how to get shit done. And we've also been acknowledged, rewarded, and celebrated for that type of like, well, I'm just going to do it. But sitting and not knowing is very uncomfortable. So I think that's also like part of, and my background in business is as a consultant. So I was rewarded and celebrated and paid for having the answer. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about getting into this type of development and coaching work is it's invited me to unlearn a lot.
I'm sure. Yeah.
In service of those that I partner with. And it's like a little meta, but also
Yeah.
like it's human, right? Because nobody has the answer.
They all pretend that they do, but
There's a lot of pretending, a lot of performing, which I think wastes a lot of time and energy that could otherwise be spent like actually learning more.
okay, so going back to your client, because I feel like, especially in today's business world where it's do more with less, blah, blah, blah. This client who was looking for answers to her strategies throughout the practice, did she find those? And did she find those, like, talk to us about the outcome of that side of the practice?
Yeah. So she did. And this client in particular actually decided to make some really big changes in the business in the interest of the higher level goals of the business and the ability to set the team and the structure, and at the end of the day, her strategy up for growth. What's most interesting though, so in fact, she and I had a session this week, and she came in with a very tactical, a tactical thing. She has a series of conversations to have around some key business decisions. And I think, like, if I say even like me with the consultant hat would have been like, all right, let's get the calendar out, what meetings need to get scheduled. But instead, we were able to spend some time on like, what has her hesitating? how is she going to show up in that conversation and be able to share some really big news that people weren't anticipating and be confident in it. And this might be a good example that sounds familiar. So she has brought to the business a series of expert consultants to weigh in on the direction that the business was taking. And in this talk, she said, previously I might have sat down with my team and said, I got this information from these experts and they told us that we needed to be doing this to move forward. But instead, she was able to recognize how she wanted to actually be in that moment. Like, what was she conveying to her team by taking a little more, I would say, like ownership over, I made this decision. As the leader, I'm interested, or owner of the business, I want your feedback, but the feedback isn't going to sway the decision that I made with the knowledge that I have for the best outcome of us all. And that, I think even that type of move requires, not saying, well, I'm doing it because I'm right, but actually like, I want the best for all of us.
That leader haven't tried to have control to more like opening the room up, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think you have to have a mental switch for a lot of leaders. Like you don't have to control the scenario, right? You don't have to like dictate. You can open the room up and be more comfortable and confident in like how you're leading and empowering.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that came up over conversations, right, that I think we can all relate to is like one of the fears that she brought to the table is, I made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to like it. People are going to leave or they're going to argue with me. And so we spend some time, right, noticing, well, when you anticipate that, if that's a story, how are you showing up for the conversation? And so back to Jason, your question about like, well, the body, the emotion, the language piece, like actually being able to recognize that those are all at play for us as humans, and metabolizing those or like getting straight with what that is prevents you from showing up. And I'm sure we've all had a leader like this and just saying, this is how it's going to be,
No
right?
questions.
The control is the way that I can get through. And in fact, it's like, no, I have confidence in the good decision-making that I am taking with input for the team. And we're going to go in this direction. There's a difference there.
You mentioned something about your client a second ago that I'm curious about. Like you use the word fear. Like how often do you talk to a leader or talk to an executive who you find is like leading from a place of fear?
That is the core of the work
that
I am doing with individuals, I think, is first identifying what is fear, right? What are the things that have me feel afraid or hesitating or in protection mode? And what are the things that are actually on my edge that are pushing me to grow or evolve, that feel uncomfortable, but I'm ready for? So one of the ways that we start in the intensive that I do with clients is we have the opportunity to build a framework of them, like the behaviors, the patterns, the very specific things that are present for them when they are in their limited self. And when I say that phrase, limited self, what comes to mind for you?
Things that hold me back.
Yeah.
Stories we're telling ourselves.
Yeah. So it's like us, it's not the best version of ourselves. It's when we're coming from a place specifically of fear. And so by being able to identify, right, what is my hidden fear? What is my limited belief? Then you get really proficient at being able to identify when that's at play versus when there's other information that you're taking in that might be more actually aligned to a big leap you're ready to make.
We interrupt this episode with some breaking news.
Big breaking news?
Big breaking news.
Love me some BBN.
For the third time, we are hosting the
Arcadia Leadership Experience.
July 27th through 30th in the woods of Montana.
Yeah, new location this year, deeper in the mountains, which is going to be fun-er. It's got some great spectacular views of the Bridger Mountains.
Sure does.
We've been
got
out there to see it a couple times.
On property.
Also, there's yaks.
Yeah, kitty yaks.
Yaks on property. But anyway, what is this Arcadia Leadership Experience known as ALX?
ALX is an anti-conference.
Like a conference, but not a conference.
Correct. Hence the anti. For 65 of the top go-to-market GTM leaders in the space, coming together to learn from each other, build intentional relationships, have really unique experiences together, like fly fishing, yoga,
Hiking.
sound bath.
But it's also great because like we're helping people discover purpose and refresh. Like, there's a lot of psychology of like being in the woods for 2 hours can reset your brain. Like imagine what 3 days in the woods can do for you.
Mhm.
And you're in the woods because like everyone's sleeping in glamping tents, with the exception of like 8 people who get it indoor lodging this year.
So if that's your GM, sign up now because those will go fast.
They're almost gone.
They are almost gone. But anyways, we'd love to see you there. ArcadiaLeadershipExperience.com for more information.
And big thanks to Partner Stack, who's helping us pull this off yet again this year.
Yep, couldn't do without them. So we'll see you this summer in Montana.
ALX 26, y'all. Peace.
If you know that you're in this place, so for me, it's I need to control the situation because I'm afraid that it will fail if I don't.
Yeah.
And therefore I'm not allowing it to be what it's going to be because I have such a tight grip on it. How do you move out from that? How do you start to like push that aside? Be like, okay, I'm aware of that. Now what?
One thing, even as I was listening to you describe it, you were able to say, okay, I'm feeling this way because I'm worried that it's going to fail. So even recognizing like, okay, I'm worried about that. And then, you, Sam, let's say we had the opportunity to go through an intensive together and you had very clear that when you hear that thought, that means you're like being pulled back into that place where you're likely coming from, your actions are going to be more aligned to like making the pain stop or right, a reaction versus like having the time to actually think, well, what do I want? Like at the highest level, what's the outcome here that I'm going for? And so I would say in a couple ways, you've done one step already, which is recognizing, right? Being an observer of yourself. Like, and that might even be, we talked about some body, like somatic things that like, oh, I'm doing this. Like I'm feeling hot, like flushed. My neck is getting hot. One of the things we define in the intensive is your default mood. So that would be like the mood that's present when you're like slipping back into that place of your limited self or your constrained, like protective lizard brain part.
I think we were both there this morning.
Well, for me, it's restless agitation, right?
Yeah.
So that's all. I use that as a first clue of like, oh, okay, I'm feeling that. So the first thing is like coming back into your body, and not in a woo way, but truly like taking a deep breath, because physiologically, the reaction, or when we have a trigger that is very familiar to us, moving into a state of reactive behavior takes 1/4 second. Having the time to actually create and identify the response that you want to have that's aligned with the outcome that you're going for takes about 4 to 5 seconds. The time for like a deep breath.
That's a crazy amount of time though. Well, the difference between those two.
Yes.
Yeah. And how much you have to like be aware of it to catch it before 1/4 second happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before the default system just kicks
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, okay. So I love that you use that phrase too, the default system. One of the ways that, and in fact, it was a client of mine who said this, and I heard her say it and I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. She said, it feels like I'm building a new internal operating system. And I think that's really accurate because you have, how many Earth years are you?
36.
So I'm 44, like, right. I have 4 decades. You have more than 3 decades. Riss Higgins, who's the coach that I worked with, she would introduce it as this 20-lane highway. And over time, right, our behavior patterns start as like a game trail. And then, right, maybe you get like the response that you're looking for, or that something feels good when you make a reactive behavior, or you take a project back, or an example for me, I like shove my husband out of the way so I can load the dishwasher the way that I want to. Like, oh, it feels good. And it's like a dopamine, right? It feels good in the moment. But the more like that happens, it becomes this 40-lane highway.
Yeah.
And so you said it, God, that seems so hard. And it is hard. It's hard because it's something new. And it's like, have you heard about, or learned about the term neuroplasticity?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman is making it very famous right now.
Oh, really? Okay, cool, Andrew. I mean, that's literally what's happening in your brain when, Sam, you go from allowing that quarter of a second reaction to take over to actually like building in the space to think, to actually set a new set of actions.
Yeah. For the listeners, let's define neuroplasticity.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, neuroplasticity at the end of the day is the ability, at regardless of what age, to, in many ways, like rewire your
Yeah.
brain.
Mhm.
Pick up new activities that allow you to build new connections in your brain, so you can behave and build new habits in different ways. I'm taking a pottery class at the Emerson Cultural Center.
Can
right
I
now.
come?
It's like I told my husband I was signing up. He's like, "Wow, very middle-aged lady thing to do." Like Ghost. I was like, "It's not like Ghost," but I think about it as like, okay, this is actually a cool exercise.
Totally.
And the instructor, when we were in one of the first classes, I'm like asking like, okay, so is it this way or is it that way or is this way? And he looks at me and he's like, "This is pottery class. There are no rules." I was like,
You're like, well, that's uncomfortable for me.
Not work for my operating system.
so that's a practice, right? Like
Yeah.
actually, I mean, if we use that example of like a pottery class, or, you know, if somebody takes a knitting class or swims, right, does something different that engages different parts of their brain, you're building like new connections.
Yeah. I feel like going back to the conversation we had kicking off, like doing those hard things, like doing things that are outside of your comfort zone, doing things that are difficult and challenging is part of that.
Yes.
And like that's why it's so crucial, like to how we can impact the work that we do and influence it. It's like you can literally rewire how your brain fires by challenging yourself and doing those hard things. And that's part of like why we encourage folks to do that.
There's this theme that has been coming up in my coaching and conversations of easy versus ease.
Mm.
Okay, so I heard you both go, What was the reaction? What does that have you think when I say easy versus ease?
Doing things because you can do something that's easy. You can do things that's kind of, you know, it's simple to carry out, but it requires maybe a longer effort to accomplish versus just doing something because it's easy and it's there.
Yeah.
It's Chat GPT versus writing your own freaking email.
Yeah. No, that's a great example.
Yeah. And same. I feel like ease is you've set yourself up to be in a place of flow.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas easy is just like the default, let's just get this done, even if
Yeah.
it's not the most strategic or effective way.
Yeah. I got really curious to like continue to look into that more, think about it more, because I find at the end of every 6-month intensive, I do a feedback and a reflection session. And I noticed the word that people were using the most to talk about what had come about in the work for them was ease. And at the same time, right, saying like this process hasn't been easy, but I often think like easy is kind of what you get when you're on autopilot.
Yeah.
And when I engage in working with a founder, an owner, or right, a very high level operator within a bigger organization, they're not looking for easy. Maybe they've done it the easy way or settle or like kind of followed a path that already existed. But you get to like a certain milestone in that path, whether it's revenue or title or right, a level of bonus that you're taking home. And the feeling might be like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm trying to do 100 things in a day. Like I'm not living in a way that I don't have ease,
Yeah.
but I'm like punching in an easy way. I'm still forming.
No,
I'm curious to hear what your reaction is, because I'm like, they're quite different things. You can be doing hard things and yet have ease.
Well, to your point, the state of being in which you do these things
totally
changes the outcome, the perspective, all of it.
Totally.
Okay, so
I
I
like
have
your
a question.
example of flow though, because like
Mm-hmm.
flow requires some effort and work to get to that state.
Totally.
Once you do, like you find that ease of like that we flow in that scenario versus like just doing the easy thing. And my example, going to Chat GPT and doing the work for you versus, you know, making the effort to do the work and finding
And
that
own
ease.
it and
Yeah.
find that, yeah. What do people come to you hoping to solve? Like, what's their initial
Yeah.
problem?
Oh, that's a great question. I often like will start the conversation like that. Like, what has you thinking about coaching, right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of things that I hear is a level of exhaustion, right? So all of the clients that I work with 7 and 8 figure founders, owners, and then a select number of C-suite executives, people who are in a key decision-making role for a large business. And one of the common things that I will hear people say is things are working, or right, like for a founder, like I built this business over the last 10, 20 years, 4 years, whatever it might be, but I'm losing myself in it, or I don't want to lose myself in it. Or we're having trouble with the team. Like I'll set a direction, or we're setting goals and either like not getting there, there's confusion along the way, there's too much thrash. I'll hear that when I hear that word, or any adjacency to that word of like, this should be easier than it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think another category of things that I hear is I've done all the right things and something isn't working, something doesn't feel good. And so then I'll take the opportunity to dig, right? What should it feel like? I spoke to somebody recently who lives in Vail, and they had said, I've done all this work to build this business. Like I can't even allow myself to leave early on Friday to go skiing, and I live in this incredible place. And so that's a clue. Okay, well, what's preventing that? I'll hear people talk about it as like, there's just this weight that I can't get out from under. If I step away from this business, everything's going to go sideways. If I don't do everything, if I'm not involved in every step. So those are kind of the neighborhood of things that someone might be saying before we work together.
We were emailing back and forth before this, and you had said like there's probably some similarities between the work we're doing at Arcadia and this.
Yeah.
And that right there, I mean, I feel like we're all conditioned to chase these titles and these careers, whether that be you're an individual contributor or you're a business owner. But at some point we wake up in our lives and we just feel this weight on our chest and think, that's it? This is it? Like I got the title, I got the salary,
Right.
I got the whatever it is we're chasing. And then you open your eyes and you're like, I still feel like shit.
Yeah. I mean, I had that exact moment myself when I was at Google. As you were talking, one thing came to mind that I'd love to share of how I was able to put it into words of like, I'm not dealing in the right currency. That's how I was able to explain it to my husband, which ultimately prompted us to move back to Montana and set off a whole other trajectory. But like on paper, right, I was moving up very quickly in an organization. There was tons of opportunity. Like I kept getting more and more, but I felt like I couldn't cash it in for what I actually wanted.
Could you define what you actually wanted at that point?
The way that I was able to talk about it is like freedom, like space.
Yeah.
I remember there was one way I was able to articulate. We're living in Seattle at the time, and we had moved from Bozeman to Seattle for my husband to go to law school. I started at Google, and things really took off for us. We were very grateful. But I remember telling him, like, we don't have any friends that just pop by. Like our life is so structured, and it's so optimized and so organized that like, I don't feel like I'm actually living it. I wanted to spend time with I had 2 infants at the time. So I had twins during my time at Google. I had a very generous maternity leave. I was super grateful for it. I went back at 80%. But that still meant that we hired a nanny to be in our house for 50 hours a week because of the travel that I had, the commitments, even though I was working 80%. And as I shared that, I recognized like to be able to make the choice was a privilege, but I think that also kept me stuck. Like, why am I not happy with this?
Why am I ungrateful for this?
Why am I ungrateful? Why? And, a little bit about my personal background. My father's an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. My mom is a teen mom. Even that concept of like a nanny to come to take care of your kids, like that way of thinking kept me stuck.
Yes.
Because I was like, I should be more grateful. People would kill for this job. But inside, like, it wasn't for me. That's not where I felt like I was shrinking and really losing myself in it. But yet I kept trying to it felt like grabbing at tokens, right? God, I just got this award, or God, I get to travel to London 4 times a year. Like the word I could describe is like it felt empty. And then I was able to say to Marcus one weekend, like, I got it. I'm not dealing in the right currency. Like,
I love that
It's-
image. I'm like picturing like you're getting tokens for a vending machine you don't even want.
Talk us through that process of like how you identified what was next and how you made that move.
I mean, at the time, I didn't have a coach I was working with, but I did know, I think Marcus and I had spent time, and this probably will resonate with you too as well, knowing your partners in life as well as business things. We actually sat down, I had like, I think this was a premonition of working like coach life. But I came up with this way of talking about what we wanted. And I took 5 pieces of computer paper and we divided them into 4 quadrants. And each quadrant was a season. So, right, winter, spring, summer, fall. And Marcus and I sat on the couch and I taped up, right, the babies are asleep. I tape up these quadrants. And then we each had Post-it notes. And I was like, I just want to get clear. Like, are we even on the same page? Do you like that? Like this, there's great things about this life, but like, is this what you want? And so we did an exercise together of writing down the things that were important to us individually when it came to like family, work, where we lived, what we were doing in our community, hobbies that we would have time for. And then when we had our individual lists, we went and put them on this timeline. Like, well, when would that happen? What we started to see together as we got those things up on the board was like, I don't know if what we say we want is actually possible with how we're living today.
Mm.
And that I think started the conversation. But it led to some really tough decisions that we made. One of them being, when we decided that we did want to move back to Montana, Marcus ended up leaving his full-time role at a law firm in Seattle, and we packed up the moving van without any idea of what his job would be when we arrived here.
Sounds familiar.
Right? And actually, like, I think grounding in that community piece, like, I think the ability to make that decision and surround yourself with other people that are also thinking in that way.
Mhm.
And as I learn more, and know what you guys are building at Arcadia, it has me like really appreciate and be excited for people that choose to surround themselves with people who are also testing out bigger leaps, right?
Yes.
Pushing the boundaries. Because, I mean, Marcus and I did that exercise in our living room, but there were some friends that we told that were like, are you insane?
Oh, I'm sure.
Why are you doing this? And then there were other friends, many of them here, right, who were like, get the moving van packed up. Like, what do you need, right? We'll come by to help out with the girls. All right, a friend who has a building downtown, and he was like, come set up your in the office. No need to pay any rent. Like, don't worry about it. And so I think speaking out loud what it is that you do want, not just what you don't want, is really important. And then finding other people and being willing to share that in a way that like you can see that you've got support and momentum. You're not alone in making a big change.
I think that exercise is so brave, that the Post-it note in the paper, because I don't want to say most, a lot of people just go through day to day and this is fine. And this is fine. And then one day they wake up and was like, well, that was fine, but it wasn't great. And I think, A, to have the wherewithal to pause and take inventory is so important, but B, then to like, from that exercise, was it clear the path of action?
I would say yes and no. What we did see, and here's what I think the most important part is like actually getting it up, like actually being able to articulate it and have it live outside of your body instead of just like spinning.
We have conversations like that all the time, and I feel like we're more aligned than most couples, but even still, I feel like sometimes our language is just like passing, and it's not. To have to write it down in a tangible way, I think would be a really interesting exercise. Yeah. We will report back.
Yeah, please do.
For those at home, or maybe in this room, what would you say typically signals that it's time for their next chapter of growth, identity shift, or whatever it might be?
Ooh, I love that question. So, I mean, in the simplest words, it's like my experience and observing others in this place too. It's like it starts as like a little scratch, like, and Sammy used those words of like, this is fine, or I'm fine. But I find that when people are ready for the next level, they've gotten to the place of like, the cost is too great to stay and find. Then the next step is like, what conditions do you set to allow that like scratchy, like something's good, right? This doesn't feel. And that's why I think we talked about like this big word ontological, but a big part of it is like, what's in your body? And for a long time, I was like even uncomfortable talking about that because I was like, blah, blah, wow.
Woo woo.
Woo woo crystals.
Yeah.
Who's going to bring out the like, but
Now we're going to go get a Reiki session after this. Just kidding, but I would.
but it's actually true. Like we have so much knowledge
Mhm.
and knowing that we have been taught is wrong or like it's not the right time or people aren't going to like to hear it. There's a story that I share with people about the decision that I made to shut down my business. So I had 7-figure e-com firm. Things were cranking along. We had an awesome team. And in this client pitch, literally the middle of it, I started to have this like almost out of body experience where I was watching myself giving the pitch. My mouth was moving, like I was saying all the right things. And yet I'm observing like, oh shit, I am not in, like something's up. And I'm hearing this voice, right? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I ended the pitch, team leaves the room. And I turned to the person who had invited me to the pitch. I closed my laptop and I said, Craig, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's a partner of mine. We were doing business together. He was like, what do you mean? Like, what part? I'm like,
It's going great.
all of it. And that, I had at that point a year and a half of working with a coach and tuning to listen. And there were moments in my life that I had felt like that, but I had stuffed it down. It's not like, and even then it was a very inconvenient time
Yeah.
to share that knowledge. But once it was out of my mouth, I was like, well, that's the most true thing I've ever said. And now I can either choose to ignore it or to do something about it. And I chose to do something about it. It was very difficult, but it's like, I'm sharing that as like the moment, right? It might be a big moment like that for somebody, or it might be like, you don't want to say yes anymore. You're ready to say no. I don't want that actually. And I'm ready to start to explore what I do want or how I want to be. How do I want to feel when I wake up in the morning and make my kids breakfast or get on the subway or like, I don't want a sense of dread.
That voice that told you weren't ready anymore, I'm sure it kind of started out as that scratch. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, like a scale of 1 to 10, how loud did that voice get before you were like, you know what? F it, I'm done.
I mean, I started to notice things in my own life, in my relationships. Like one of the steps that I took that I thought would like help me resolve the noise is like I decided to stop drinking alcohol. For a long, long time, like in my career, the roles that I had always had like an entertainment or performance or like, take the clients out, wine them and dine them. I had like party Kelly and like, then there was business Kelly. And I found that like when I removed the alcohol, I was able to hear, like I had to sit with a lot of feelings or reactions or things that were uncomfortable. I think also starting to see more clearly what the impact was to my relationships with, my husband, my kids, friends of mine, like how I saw myself showing up in my life that I didn't like. And it was confusing because I was like, but wait, I'm successful. My life is good.
This is fine.
This is so can that be our cue? That's like the
meme with
the
the
du-
dog
right,
sitting
yeah.
on fire. Like everything's fine.
But you're like the temperature has to get to a point where you make the choice. Because here's the other thing. Nobody else is going to tell you, your best friend, your spouse, like they're not going to be like, hey, I think it's time to do some really hard shit.
Yeah.
He told me.
I really like the quote, like, no one's coming to save you.
Yeah,
It's so true because also like you being fine allows others to be fine.
Oh.
It allows them to also be okay with your fine. Like they don't know the best of what you have to offer.
I want to talk about this really quickly too, because I feel like you use the word inconvenient, and I think that is none of this is convenient. None of this is easy. Like, and there's not like, it's not like you told that person, Craig, like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? There's a great job right there that pays really well that you can just walk right into. Like, there are real consequences to these decisions, and the courage that takes is immense.
I agree with you. For anybody that makes that kind of step, right, without like knowing logically or like slotting into like, oh, because I'm not doing this, I'm going to do this thing. So I think too, especially once you've gotten to a role where you become responsible for other people's livelihood. When I made that decision, I also had a team. We were up to a team of 10. One of the people who was on my team was moving into a full-time role. This happened in September. In full-time role in January. That was brand new to her. She was right. Like I shared before, my limited belief is I have to be responsible, which kept me right constrained, small. I think I also had feelings of like, well, I can't stop because I have to be responsible. Yet what I wasn't seeing that like, actually the bravest, the most impactful thing that I could do was tell the truth that I knew to be true. And then trust that those that were around me that I was engaged in were able to hear that. Maybe they didn't like it. It made things inconvenient for them as well. I mean, that was the hardest conversation I've ever had to have professionally, to go back into my office and hold a meeting with my team and say, I've made a decision to roll down this business.
The meeting went great, but
there were tears.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, we had built something really special together, but I also was able to say to them, my heart is no longer in this. I cannot ask you to commit your days and your time and your talent to this business that I know I am no longer the person to run and build. I don't know what it means. But I need to be honest with you about that. And I was able to do that through, I think, having worked with a coach who was able to help me see that it's like, there's another phrase. I don't know if it's a cliche yet, but like clear is kind, right? Like not.
I've never heard it, so you're
okay,
good.
Yeah. Like some of the teams that I work with now have trouble like saying things that they think aren't nice, right? Or like shaking the boat. But the more that we like cover or paper things up, the bigger the issue is going to be when it finally explodes.
Totally.
So I took us in a little bit of a different direction there. But what I wanted to share was like, when you know what is true for you and you start making strides in that direction, there will be people that don't understand it, question it, right? Might have some short-term feelings about it. They're uncomfortable, they're inconvenienced, but I was allowing that to like almost build a cage around me. And to this day, every single member of that team that I had to share that feedback with, we are advocates of each other, friends, right? I admire what they've gone on to build and do. And I'm really happy with how I was able to show up in my own integrity in that conversation. It was shitty and there were a lot of tears and I was really worried about it. I don't think I slept for 2 or 3 nights before it. But once I said it, it was like, well, yes, that is true.
To bring this home, I mean, I don't know how
We went a lot of different places. I hope this is okay. We just went on a ride together.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It feels like we did a live coaching session.
It does. That's how I feel every time I go on a walk with Kelly. I'm like,
I love that. Right. I think that like whether it's a coach or a mentor or a peer, like I know I saw you, Sam, share something on LinkedIn actually about like making time to have conversations with others. And I think you had offered your time. Is that something that you've done?
oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's another tool, right? To kind of pull us out of like, it's fine. I think is finding those people that are willing to get into the deep end.
I like that. Yeah.
And be real. Our nervous system loves chit chat, like loves icebreaker, like
Surface level conversation.
Right. Because it feels right. We know what to expect. But I think like when I think about times that I built up enough like courage or bravery to make a big leap, I didn't do it in a silo. Like I always had people that I was, able to share some of that with at a
Yeah.
real level without the fear of like, oh, they're going to think I've effed up or they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. So I think that too, like, is a reminder for me in our conversation today of how important it is to keep cultivating those types of relationships with people.
Definitely.
Love it. Okay, so we should bring this home for time's sake. Let's end it the way we started it. What epics do you have on the calendar for
I
this
love
year?
this.
Oh, so yeah. So Sam asked me this question. We went on a walk. I've actually,
Well, I did not know this.
no. You. Same
It's a
as
great answer to
preview,
share.
but-
Good question.
I've actually decided this year to shift it a little bit. So last year was really focused, right, on like the physical training, getting out, doing these big long runs. They were so fun. I learned a lot, but this year for me, as I think about my epics, as more of like going inside, I think I'm ready for that. So as an example, one of the practices I came across is called focusing. Have you heard of focusing?
I don't think so. I know what focusing is, but
Yeah. But as a practice. So that it's like similar to meditation, but you can work with a trained practitioner. And the intent is rather than aiming to like clear your mind and remove like thought and awareness about, right, or just like the spin, you're actually tuning the ability to listen more deeply. And so for this year, I'm working on, or my epics are more around like learning new things. So like neuroplasticity. And one of the new things that I'm learning and working with a practitioner on is this focusing practice. So we meet every 2 weeks.
Nice.
And I get to show up and be a participant and sort of have a facilitated session where I have the ability to go a little bit deeper into like what I'm here, what my body is telling me, what my knowing right knows. That's a little out there for me to even say. But I think it's that. So I think rather than like big adventures, the theme is like tuning.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Very cool.
Oh, this
Really
was
fun
so
conversation.
cool, you guys. Thank you.
Kelly, if
This
somebody
was a lot
wants
of
to
fun.
learn more, where do they go? Where do
Yeah.
they find you?
So on LinkedIn,
Okay.
Kelly Ramirez. And then my coaching practice is called Elemental Leadership. And my website is welcometoelemental.com.
Amazing. Well, I'm grateful to call you a friend. Thank you for being our first in person. This was very fun.
I
Yeah,
thought we did
I
a good
loved it.
job.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll
more.
see what happens when we
Look
listen
at
back. But
I hope the audio captured. But who knows? We'll see.
friends, thank you so much for being here. As always, Kelly, it's been a pleasure. And we'll see you next time.
See y'all.